What's wavy? It's Moon. We back. Nothing is going to stop me this season. Nothing. Not technical difficulties. Not all the haters. Not even having some of these players that people are fading, like Kenny Galladay on my team for fantasy this year. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about Kenny Galladay. What's wavy? It's MoonVibes. Tune in to Fantasy Vibes, your one-stop shop for everything that you need in the world of fantasy sports. Specifically, NFL season is right there. And do you smell it? It's like Friday. Taste the air. You taste it. Oh, it's right there, bro. It's right there. Brad said, all you smell is the barbecue from your Falcons going 0-17 this year. 0-17. Well, I'm not trying to hear that noise this year, my guy. I'm not. Welcome to the show. We got a jam-packed show. We're trying to get a lot of content for you on this Wednesday, September the 7th. 2022, and the season is right there. Bills versus Rams is literally less than 24 hours away, and the excitement is through the roof. If you're a casual football fan out there, okay, maybe you might be like, oh, okay. If you're a diehard out there, I know, can't even count down the hours. But who has you covered all season long? You need to know. Your boy Moon does. Got you. We back and we better. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Ride This Wave, waiver wire pickups that you need to be targeting for week one. In that special segment, it's going to be some names that you're familiar with, some other names that you might not be expecting. You don't want to miss it. Also coming up in the show, we're going to be getting into week one injury report. There's other injuries going on around the National Football League that we need to monitor and, check in with as we get closer and closer to kickoff on Thursday and also on Sunday. I got you covered. I'm going to keep you loaded with the information that's coming up in the show. And you're going to get a special sneak peek into Vibstradamus with that. Also, I got another fan favorite. Throw the towel. It's time. I have a player that I'm not really feeling this year in fantasy, and I'm just going ahead and throw the towel now so I don't have to get my hopes up throughout the season. You don't want to miss who I am talking about. I got a special segment coming up also on the show where we're going to be breaking down the top 5 NFC breakout candidates for MoonVibes, the top 5. And I promise you, this list is not going to be all the hype that you see on Twitter and all these people's favorites. I'm not going to be doing that. If anything, I'm going to be giving that list the people's elbow, and we're going to be seeing the top 5 NFC breakout candidates for this year. Gotta get you covered and prepared for that. Also, I'm going to be telling you what I'm doing this week with starting and sitting, and I'm going to go through a couple of my rosters courtesy of Sleeper, and I'm going to be breaking down some of my start and sits. If I have time, we're going to try to go around the NFL in 10 minutes or less. But you know what the vibe is. All of this is coming on Fantasy Vibes, but none of it. And I mean none of it. You hear me? I said none of it would be able to get started without my favorite segment. Let me go ahead and lock in. Without the main enchilada. The big daddy of them all. Not the granddaddy Moon. Gotta put respect on the Rose Bowl. Even though UCLA fans don't want to show up. I'm petty. I'm talking about the big daddy of them all. Real Talk. Sponsored by Real Ones Productions. It's coming up right after this. The title of this Real Talk is called The Ballad of Cheesehead Receivers. I repeat, the segment title is The Ballad of Cheesehead Receivers. Who in the NFL rocks cheeseheads? I'll let you think about it. Real Talk, say it with my chest. Sammy Watkins will prove to be Green Bay's #1 wide receiver for 2022. You heard that correctly. I don't have to repeat it because I feel like you heard what I said. Now, let's just keep it a buck. Why are you saying this, Moon? Last year, Sammy Watkins played in 13 games, Moon. He only had 27 receptions, 394 yards, and a touchdown, Moon. He averaged 3.3 fantasy points per game, Moon. 43.4 fantasy points, Moon. This is in the regular season, Moon. Why are you mentioning him? Why do you want to talk about his time at Kansas City, Moon? Or do you want to talk about the Bills and the glorious time that he had in the Bills, where he had his best season? Well, I don't even want to mention that because this is not even about stats. This is based on what our eyes are telling us, what our ears are listening to, and the information that we're filtering out and filtering in. So I preface everything that I'm about to say with, I've been doing my research on the Green Bay Packers. And there's a lot of wide receiver question marks heading into the season for Green Bay. A lot. In fact, none of us really know who's going to be the guy because Devontae Adams is no longer there. So their guy is not there. He's in Las Vegas right now practicing with Derek Carr. And since he's not there, that leaves a gaping hole. So there leaves a lot of speculation like what is really about to happen in Green Bay? How is Aaron Rodgers about to make it work? Is he about to fall off of a cliff? I'm not going to go out on that limb, my guy. When's the last time Aaron Rodgers threw an interception? 1994? All jokes aside, Aaron Rodgers is the type of quarterback that earlier in this offseason, we saw him chew out his wide receivers because he felt like they weren't ready. They weren't prepared. They were half stepping. Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback that has been vocal plenty of times throughout his career to his teammates and expecting more. That's what happens when you play with a great quarterback. They expect more of you. It's deeper than just, how you can get open. Nah. Getting open is only a piece of the puzzle. It's getting open, being at the spot that I need you to be, and then also catching the football. And then after that, it's can you get run after catch? Can you get busy with the ball in your hands? Can I develop trust? Could I point out to you that Aaron Rodgers prefers production over potential? I know there's a Christian Watson and everybody's fan favorite right now, Romeo Doubs. There's there. Also, if you talk about Alan Lazard, who missed not another practice today, keep that in mind. Alan Lazard is out there. You got Randall Cobb, and everybody is like, hey, Randall Cobb is there, Moon. If anybody you talking about trust, then that's the guy that he needs to be trusted. Well, I'll tell you this. All of these wide receivers are there, and there's some that I didn't even name. We can even go deeper to the practice squad if you really want to. But all of these wide receivers are there, and none of them seem to be getting the amount of love as like a Romeo Doubs. In fact, that's what makes it even murky for this situation. But could I just interest you in a little bit of clarity for you? There are two wide receivers on the Packers wide receiver core that know how to play outside the numbers, right? One of them is Alan Lazard. But Alan Lazard, let's just be honest, I think that he is going to prove more to be a wide receiver number 2 or 3 more than he is a wide receiver number 1 this year. In fact, I like and prefer Alan Lazard in the slot. I prefer him in the slot more than anything. But he does have experience playing outside. If you look at his numbers last year, I think he had 8 touchdowns. He came on. Everybody was like, yo, this kid, right? Big body wide receiver with some speed on him. This ain't MVS that we talking about. This Allen mother-licking Lazard. But there's another guy that has wide receiver experience playing on the outside that seems to be getting forgotten in this process. And his name, if I care to introduce him to you, he goes by the name of Sammy Watkins. What'd you say, Mom? I said Sammy Watkins. Now, Sammy last year played in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. Now he gets a chance to play with Aaron Rodgers. Talk about being blessed. We all know how talented he is as a wide receiver. We know the talent. You don't just get picked in the first round and just not be a talented receiver coming out of Clemson. That was a while ago. So veteran is definitely his label and his tag this year. However, what people are failing to realize is that this season is a long one. Yeah, we can talk about the potential of the wide receivers and the Dobbs and the Watsons of the world for Green Bay and the cheeseheads and say, hey, I have more faith in them. Oh, well, Romeo Dobbs is eating lunch with Aaron Rodgers, so that must mean something. Well, there was reports coming out of training camp that Sammy Watkins, at the end of training camp, was putting together one of his most finest stretches. He had got praised by Aaron Rodgers, talking about his consistency, how he's turned it on ever since the Saints practice, joint practice, that is. Then they seen the new Sammy Watkins. The season is right around the corner. They play Vikings week 1 in Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. The line for that game has it over about 48 points, over under point total. So I can just look at it and be like, whoa, they're going to have to pass the ball. Aaron Rodgers knows what he has in Aaron Jones. He knows what he has in A.J. Dillon, but there is more cause for pause when you talk about the wide receivers. That's not even including the fact that Robert Tonyan is not fully healthy yet, and we're hoping that he can get busy this year and really take a next jump up. It would just be beautiful to see, right? But we have to talk about what we have in front of us. And I'm here to tell you that over the course of this time, we understand how great of a thrower Aaron Rodgers is. We understand how he can throw receivers open, thread the needle in so many different situations. We understand how great of a quarterback he is, and you can debate his postseason success or lack thereof at another time and in another episode. But for today's real talk, I need you to understand, and I tweeted this yesterday, Sammy Watkins will be the number 1 wide receiver in Green Bay. I'll let you marinate on that and really put context on it by saying, do you mean season long, Moon? As far as like fantasy numbers, is he going to finish as the wide receiver 1 in Green Bay? Yes. Yes. If we talking about actual wide receivers, don't get me started on Aaron Jones and how he's a real wide receiver 1. Aaron Jones is the guy that I'm looking at like, yo, give me all the shares I can get of Aaron Jones. But since we're talking about the ballad of cheesehead wide receivers, Aaron Rodgers prefers production over potential. And regardless of how you may feel about Sammy Watkins, he can be productive. And if you talk about most recent, he has been productive in training camp. You talk about trust, a receiver being able to get open when he needs to get open, be on time when he needs to be there, knowing when and when not to break your route off. These are things that the rookie wide receivers are going to have to learn just in their first seasons in the NFL. To say that there's not going to be a learning curve is just naive. There is. But what wide receiver has experience playing on the outside other than Alan Lazard, who did not practice for the second straight day? Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins has a history of going off in week 1. And I'll be talking about him a little bit later in the show because he made the cut for another segment. But this real talk, looking into the camera and saying it emphatically with my chest, my guy, Sammy Watkins will be the wide receiver number 1 in Green Bay. And cheesehead fans, you'll come to know him and you'll come to depend on him and you'll come to rely on him. All of those seem scary, right? Me depend on Sammy Watkins? You talking about Sammy that can't stay on the field? This is a new season, my guy, my lady. This is a new day. Fresh anointing. Come on now. Coming my way. Season of prosperity. Sammy Watkins. I'm not going to be like the rest of the public and fade you. If you have him out there on your waiver wires, I'll talk to you a little bit later. But hey, go ahead and pick my guy up. This is Real Talk presented by Real Ones Production. I freaking love that segment. I love that segment so much, bro. I love that segment. That always gets my juices flowing. You feel that? You feel that in the air? This is fantasy vibes. If you're a college football fan out there, I know week 1 was absolutely crazy, but don't you want to get prepared more and be ready for the games as they kick off on Saturday? Yeah, I would want to. Who has you covered and locked and loaded at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time every single Saturday? Every single Saturday. I'm talking about R1P. R1P, you don't want to miss it. My guys, I got myself, Jalen Wilson, LL Cool Brad, Lever KT. We make up the college football kickoff crew, and we take you through the list of games all around the country to get you prepared for college football Saturdays in a unique way that's unlike what you're going to see on TV. For me, to say that to you is one thing, but you know what they say. Sometimes you just got to show you. Check out this little quick promo from Real Ones Productions about college football kickoff. Like I said before, my friend, you do not want to miss Saturdays. It's getting popping on Saturdays, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Real Ones Productions YouTube. You can find it by searching in your search bar, Real 1S Productions. Check us out. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss the notifications. So turn on that notification bell. And we look forward to seeing you on Saturday. If you're a college football fan that's out there, we come to the intermission of the show because we got our juices rolling and we got to calm ourselves down a little bit. But I want to tell everybody out there, whether you're listening and watching on Twitter, whether you're watching and listening on Twitch, or if you see this playback on YouTube, you're greatly appreciated for checking out my content and experiencing the wave of fantasy vibes. We want to love on you, appreciate you, and tell you, hey, share this with somebody. You never know how you can impact them, and you never know who's interested in fantasy. Quick little story. My pest control guy, who's not going to be there for long, he's a great guy. I ended up having him come over yesterday, and lo and behold, this man told me he had Jalen Hurts, Dalvin Cook, and Alvin Kamara on his roster. And we talking about fantasy. And I felt like stepbrothers. Did we just become best friends? Yup. We just become best friends. That's how it was. So you never know how you can impact somebody. So share the content. We appreciate it. I would know I would appreciate it. And I appreciate y'all tuning in to content that we're giving you here at Fantasy Vibes. Moon's mailbag. If you have a question for Moon, drop it in the chat. The time is now. I'm here to get you prepared for these fantasy week 1 and answering all questions for you. So if you have a question, put it in the chat. I'll get a chance to see it. And this segment is sponsored by Real Ones Productions. Again, sponsored by R1P. Question from the audience that we get out there on Twitter. And I said this yesterday. Which running back below 100 ADP will have the highest ceiling for week 1 in fantasy? I'm glad you asked that question. Well, it's easy to just look at it and be like, okay, this like cuts off our list of guys in half. So we're basically talking about RB2s that have a chance to step in and get R1P. No, I said R1P. Step in and get RB1 numbers this week. The things that I look at is maybe, just maybe, Michael Carter taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Interesting to say the least. We understand what Baltimore's defense was last year, and I'm not banking on that. I know that they have a lot of different changes, new defensive coordinator, some new pieces. Michael Carter interests me, but he's not the guy that I'm going to go with. The guy that I feel like have the highest ceiling is actually Ramondre Stevenson, New England Patriots. I've talked about Ramondre over the last month or so quite a bit, and I feel like he might as well be able to sponsor me, because I've been championing the Ramondre Stevenson hype train, and I want everybody to get aboard. It starts week 1 against the Miami Dolphins in Miami. I know that there were some reports that came out and said that New England was trying to get in Miami way before their game just so they can get acclimated to the humidity, get acclimated to the weather. You have a high profile offense, at least we expect on paper, and we ask ourselves, how can you be able to contain that? How can you be able to keep them off the field? Possess the ball. Time of possession. I think Bill Belichick knows that. I mean, you don't want to be in a situation where you just totally abandon the run game all the way. And Ramondre is not just a runner. He can block, which makes him be on the field, increases snap percentage. He can receive, that makes him be on the field and increase snap percentage. And we all understand how talented he is as a runner. This is just the facts. This is what Bill Belichick has been telling us. This is what we've been seeing as far as growth. This is what it is. You know what I mean? So when we check out the list of ADP currently, my bet would be Ramondre Stevenson to have the running back under 100 ADP that has the highest ceiling for this year. Not for this year, for the week 1. For week 1. Ramondre Stevenson. Any other questions? Put them in the chat. We have a Mo's mailbag. Might not be any questions because I know lineups aren't getting locked and loaded really until later in the week. If any more questions, we'll come back to Mo's mailbag over the course of the show. You don't want to miss it. Keep it locked. And that segment is sponsored by Real Ones Productions. Sponsored by Real Ones Productions. Coming up next in the show, it's a segment that I know y'all been waiting on, and today is Waiver Wire Wednesday. Waiver Wire. It's when you're scouting your waivers, you're trying to see who can you snipe from your rest of your league mates, who's there just sitting there that shouldn't be there, but needs to be on the roster. Well, I got you loaded. I got you covered. It's time for the segment that y'all been waiting for. Ride this wave. Players that you need to be taking more seriously. Players that you should be picking up on your waiver wire. Players that I don't even understand why they're on your waiver wire. But let's get it started and let's get it kicked off like this. I talked about him a little bit before, but I'm just going to start it off again with him. Sammy Watkins, week 1, taking on Minnesota Vikings. It's appealing. We understand what Sammy Watkins can do in week 1 games. It's kind of like similar to how T.Y. Hilton always seems to cook up the Houston Texans. Yeah, it's in that same type of ballpark. Sammy Watkins is currently 22% owned on rosters on Yahoo. You need to tap in. That means that the numbers are probably around the same ballpark or lower. If you want to add the other platforms like ESPN, Sleeper, CBS, all of the different platforms, 22%. I bank on that being higher by the end of week 1. Sammy Watkins, the first player. You need to ride this way. Coming up next on Ride This Way. I know. He might be someone that you're not trying to pay attention to. And if you're looking at the waiver wire today, people are probably telling you, hey, you need to tag Jameis Winston because he's playing my Atlanta Falcons. You maybe need to try Ryan Tannehill. Week 1. I'm going to dig while everybody else zags. The player that you need to be taking a serious look at is Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is 12% owned in Yahoo leagues. 12%. 12. That means that not only is he a waiver wire pickup right now, but it looks like he's going to be there. But what if Carson Wentz comes out against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I don't know if they know how to play defense compared to what we did last year. Now, I know they had their highlight moments when they played the Bills, held them to 9 points. Yeah, I know there was just moments, but overall, as a course of the season, not that really impressive. They take on the Washington Commanders in Washington in a game that's a revenge game for Carson. He's taking on his old former coach, Doug Peterson. And what way to kind of rub some salt in the wound for Carson and get some revenge than to light up the secondary and the defensive backs and the linebackers and the defense as a whole of the Jacksonville Jaguars for going over 3 touchdowns, over 250 yards, and possibly finishing over Jameis Winston that we talked about before and Ryan Tannehill like we talked about before. Waiver wire pickup and somebody you need to ride this wave. Carson Wentz, 12%. Yes, on Yahoo. Pick him up. Coming up next on Ride This Wave. There's a lot of things in this world that I do not trust. Like the CIA. I don't trust them. I don't trust anybody that pulls out in front of me and drives slow. I don't trust them. I don't trust people that like ranch. Yeah, I said it. So I don't really like ranch. But one thing I also do not trust is the San Francisco 49ers backfield. Who to start on a week-to-week basis? Elijah Mitchell is banged up right now already before we even start the season. I know they got Torian Davis-Price. I understand what their running back stable looks like. But who is the guy that you need to be playing? Who is the guy that you need to be picking up? Well, I'll like to throw my hat in and tell you that, hey, Jeff Wilson Jr. is at 13% owned on Yahoo right now. 13%. The 49ers, they're taking on the Chicago Bears, a defense that people expect to be a step behind the rest of the pack. But I think this week could be kind of like a surprise because that game and the over-under is very low. It's in the 40s. So a lot of people might not be touching this game. But if you need a waiver wire pickup this week, somebody that you can ride this wave on, you see the footage from this game against New England. This man had 3 touchdowns. Jeff Wilson, Elijah Mitchell can't go. Even if he can, I think that they're going to interchange running backs, and this is what the system calls for. This is Kyle Shanahan's system. And I don't trust their running backs on who to start on a week-to-week basis, but I think you should go ahead and pick him up. Jeff Wilson Jr., 13% on Yahoo. You need to ride this wave. Coming up next, I got a tight end for you. Gerald Everett, Los Angeles Chargers, currently 22% rostered on Yahoo. 22% is pretty high for Gerald Everett. He is in one of the highest point totals on the spread for week 1 with the Chargers taking on the Raiders this week. Chargers were 5th in pass rate last year. Some people are telling me that they can pass for way more. I know if you're a Michael Williams owner, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Josh Palmer, you might be like, hey, I'm going to start my guys. But a guy that you're probably not going to hear a lot of is Gerald Everett, at least when we're cutting into Sunday. But after Sunday, I very well think that a lot of people are going to be trying to rush to the waiver wire to pick up Gerald Everett. He has touchdown upside in this offense. Last year, Jared Cook finished 13th in targets last year in this offense. I understand you're seeing Seattle Seahawks highlights with Gerald Everett. I get it. But this is a new situation with plenty of upside for Everett. 22% rostered. Not after week 1. Gerald Everett needs to ride this way. Last but not least, Arizona Cardinals. Put on my Twitter. Fantasy Fiesta. Now, it's when you have a great offense, the average defense, taking on another team with the great offense.
Really want to smoke, you ain't got that shit. I've been cruising down the block with a badass bitch. My mind on the attention, it's not on my head. Fuck then I did say I'm finna take a trip. You don't really want to smoke, you ain't got that shit. I've been cruising down the block with a badass bitch. My mind on the attention, it's not on my head. Fuck then I did say I'm finna take a trip. Nigga too icy, I pull up in layers. Don't need a blade, I'm feeling a slayer. Mind on the bread, but I'm not a baker. Need a teaspoon the way I get paid. I don't fuck with 12. Don't fuck with no rules. I do fuck with guns, so pay me that Ruger. Pass me the gas, I'm finna get higher. Don't need a test, I know she a liar.
Rondale Moore is a player that not only is he going to be heavily targeted and involved in this year, but no D-Hop. We have Ertz still there. Chase Edmonds is no longer there, so he could be used in short and intermediate spaces. Rondale Moore is a player that you need to heavily consider because the over-under of this game, last time I checked, was 53.5 for Cardinals and Chiefs. I talked about a fantasy fiesta. A fantasy fiesta is anytime you have an average teams with average defenses but great offenses taking on each other. That's a fantasy fiesta. You want to target that game not only for DFS, but in your lineups, players. So I'm thinking starting Kyler, starting Hollywood, of course, right? Starting Ertz. Then on the opposite side, starting Kelsey, Mahomes. You want to start a running back on the list? Go for it. But I don't really trust none of the running backs for the Chiefs. Why? Because we know that the Kansas City Chiefs can win games without running the ball. They showed us that all last year. They showed it to us last year. However, one thing we want to see more of this year, that I personally want to see more of, is Rondale Moore being utilized in this offense. I think that happens this week. He's being rostered at 28% of Yahoo leagues. That's still quite low for a wide receiver that's sliding in to be wide receiver number 2 in this offense. AJ Green looks to be the wide receiver number 3. Rondale Moore, you need to ride this wave. And let's go. Those are all the waiver wire pickups that you need to go for this week. I'm going to go down the list. We got Carson Wentz versus the Jags at 12%. Jeff Wilson, the junior, at 13% for the San Francisco 49ers running back. Sammy Watkins at 22% on Yahoo right now. Rondale Moore at 28% on Yahoo. And Gerald Everett, tight end for the Los Angeles Chargers, 22%. All of them, you see a common theme? They're in the 20s or lower. 20s or lower. So I want to give you players throughout the season that's 20s or lower that you're probably not going to have other people really paying attention to, but you want to be ahead of the wave. That's why the segment is called what? What is it called, Moon? there you see a live looking at my roster, courtesy of Sleeper. And we'll be fixing some of my lineups on the fly so you can get a overall sense of what I'm trying to attack this week when it comes to fantasy, players that I'm starting, players that I'm fading, and I'll go through a couple of leagues and set my lineups for you. Got that covered and locked. You don't want to miss it. That's coming up a little bit later in the show. But coming up next, ladies and gentlemen, coming up next, you do not want to miss it. We're talking about the top 5 MoonVibes top 5 NFC breakout candidates. Top 5. Now, this list was actually pretty hard to come up with because I wanted to steer clear of players that consensus would tell you that are the popular breakout candidates. So think Cole Kmet, think Gabe Davis. Who else? Damian Pierce. Like all of those. I wanted to steer away from them and really focus on the NFC side of things. And this year, there's 5 players that I have my eye on specifically that's going to be able to take that next jump in fantasy this year. And coming up first, bro. This is a homer pick. And this is the only one of the few that I chose that is a homer. Everybody else, not on my team, so I can't claim you. Coming up first on this special segment of top 5 NFC breakout candidates, let's start it off with the guy. He only had 1 touchdown last year in London, sipping tea with the pinky up. This year is not going to be the case. I'm telling you, mismatch nightmare, yards at the catch, assassin, somebody that is going to be heavily featured. Did you know that Marcus Mariota made Delaney Walker a top 5 fantasy tight end 3 different times and 3 different occasions? That's a Kyle Pitts tweet. Do you also know Marcus Mariota plays in the system with Arthur Smith, his former OC, that features a lot of play action, a lot of misdirection, a lot of rolling out and moving the pocket, which also, when you pair that Drake London looks to be getting to full health and possibly playing, you got another piece. This offense is going to be the Kyle Pitts show. I really firmly believe that. I will plant my flag now and say that Kyle Pitts is the cheapest that he's ever going to be in fantasy football right now. In dynasty drafts, he's going in the first round, but he's going mid to late first rounds. In redraft, Kyle Pitts is going in anywhere between the 3rd and 4th rounds right now. We have to just keep it a buck. That price, by the time we're in next season, is not going to be that. You can bank on it. Take it to the bank. I'm banking on Kyle Pitts not only having a monster season, but finishing as a tight end 1 in fantasy. You heard that correctly. Tight end 1 finish for Kyle Pitts. He's my first NFC breakout candidate for 2022. Who's up next, Moon, in your breakout candidates list? Oh, I thought you never asked, my friend. This guy right here has been getting off-season work this entire time with Trey Lance. Now, I know the public, we still was holding on hope for Jimmy G to be a trade candidate to another team out there. Some people said Seattle. Some people said, hey, well, maybe he needs to go to the AFC. There's a lot of different speculations, but the 49ers chose to bring him back. Also, when you talk about him getting re-signed and they pay him the money, Jimmy G is paid and handsome, might I add. Paid and handsome. Or in the words of the Migos, handsome and wealthy. But he's going to be cooling, sitting back, relaxing, and being the QB2. But let's talk about the wide receiver too, because I don't have a ton of confidence or trust when it comes to this 49ers backfield from a week-to-week basis. But what do I have trust in? The fact that Trey Lance and Brandon Ayuk got a lot of time this offseason to work on their chemistry. Why? Because Deebo Samuel wasn't practicing heavily. Deebo Samuel was also in a situation where he was going through a contract dispute. There was a lot of negativity around Deebo Samuel, and that's not getting in the way of who he is as a football player. But you also have to factor in that Debo also has been dealing with the bone bruise, and it's weird because it seems to be like in the back of his knee. He has also been dealing with some other injuries too. And if you just look over his course of career, this is what it is. We already saw it in the preseason that Ayuk looks to be somebody that's going to get open. We talked about it in training camp, and 49ers brass and the people around the 49ers have been just raving. Even the players have been raving about Brandon Ayuk. If Trey Lance and Brandon Ayuk can take it to that next jump, I know it was frustrating last year, and I had Brandon Ayuk on my roster. I have him currently on my roster in Dynasty. So this is not just me saying this just to say it. This is me saying because I firmly believe that a 2022 breakout candidate is wearing the 49ers jersey, and he's getting busy. Number 11, Mr. Ayuk. He's player number 2 on my list of top 5 breakout candidates. Who's players number 3, Moon? Well, I thought you never asked, my girl. I thought you never asked. A lot of people don't want to hear this, but I said yesterday, well, in the last episode, that, hey, Mike Evans, who is a wide receiver that finishes a wide receiver 1 that can fall off of a cliff, and I predicted Mike Evans would fall off of a cliff from wide receiver 1 to low-end wide receiver 2. Now, that's a pretty big cliff. And I'm going to have to stand by that in the entire season. And I'm not nervous. You want to know why? Because my whole point of saying that was Chris Godwin seems to be healthy. And he's working back towards full health. And I say that you have to put context on this. I feel like the NFL is one of the most physical games that we have on this planet. So no player is going to be full health after week 1 starts. No player is going to be full health for the rest of the season. That's a fact. Even when we include bye weeks. Chris Godwin recently shed his knee brace. That's a plus. Now, could I be under that on the same team and say like 2 things could be true at the same time? Yeah. I talked about Julio and said that he was going to be, they didn't just pay him for nothing. He's going to be brought in. But we look at Godwin and look at his stats. Godwin has been a nightmare for defenses since he's been in the NFL. And y'all are not about to sit here and act like Chris Godwin has not put up fantasy football numbers since he's been in Tampa Bay. Last year in 14 games, he had 98 receptions, my friend. 5 touchdowns and a 1.1K yards. Say that again, Moon, because I don't think they heard you. 14 games. 98 receptions. 98? You mean to tell me Mike Evans only had 70-something receptions? Yeah, he had 98 receptions and 1.1 yards. 1.1K yards. 5 tutties. 10.3 yards per game. And he still was dealing with some injuries. Well, Moon. Wait. What about 2020, Moon? Oh, 2020? Yeah, he was hurt. Yeah, he had situations. You know what I'm saying? But things, if you just look at his track record, look at the history. Godwin is somebody that can get busy. Just in 2019, he had 1.3K yards, 86 receptions, 9 touchdowns, and he put up 190 standard points. In PPR, he put 276 up. 276, finishing as a wide receiver 1. Chris Godwin, I'm here to tell you, give him a couple of weeks to get acclimated after the knee. Give him a couple of weeks to get his footing. But you want to talk about a player that Brady can trust? You're looking at the highlights and seeing across the middle. I am banking on Chris Godwin being my number 3 breakout candidate in the NFC. Who's number 4, Moon? Well, this is going to be a surprise. Number 4 on the list? I understand people think that Seattle Seahawks are not going to be a good team. I understand this. But I don't think that they understand that Rashad Penny is going to be the number 1 running back in that situation. They're a team that clearly have told us that, look, we would rather stick with the guys that we have, Geno Smith and Drew Lock, than to go trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, trade for Baker Mayfield, trade for all these other quarterbacks. In fact, it looks like they're banking on attacking quarterback next year when it comes to the draft. However, you want to know a player that has the potential to be a stud for fantasy, but be on a subpar team? Look no further. Don't look any further than Rashad Penny. You see the highlights right there and see that not only is he a physical specimen when he runs the rock, but last year's stretch is just the icing on the cake. I think that he takes last year's stretch and continues it this season as he's working his way to full health. And I'm banking on him to not only be the number one running back throughout the entire season, but really make it hard for Kenneth Walker to get consistent snaps from the Seahawks. They obviously have showed us that they will ride Penny until the wheels fall off. And this year, I don't look at it any different. They're a bad team that have some great players on their team. And when you just look at it from a running back perspective, Rashad Penny is getting drafted ADP 100 and below. So you talk about breakout in fantasy, he can easily finish up there. And if you talk about week 1, take on the Denver Broncos, he's a sneaky play that you need to start week 1 to somebody that can go over their projection. Rashad Penny, number 4 on the list. Who is number 5, Moon? Who's number 5? Well, I thought you never asked, my friend. Number 5, we got a chance to see him in the preseason, and the throwing motion looks different. Mechanics look different. The type of throws that he's making or just make you uncomfortable because it's like, how did you get the ball in there? Everybody is expecting Chicago to be another bad team. And you sense the theme with this. I picked 3 players on teams that are projected to be bad. Kyle Pitts on a team that's projected to be bad. Justin Fields on a team that's projected to be bad. Seattle Seahawks, Rashad Penny on a team that's projected to be bad. Chris Godwin, yeah. Brandon Ayuk, yeah. But Justin Fields, I said it on the last episode, but I think Justin Fields takes the biggest jump of a rookie quarterbacks from last year into this year. Everybody is expecting them to be an underdog. But what they're not expecting is Justin Fields to be able to put this offense on his back. Everybody is expecting the same old bad news, the Bears, but not equating the newness in the atmosphere. No, I'm not talking about the stadium proposal to build a dome so they can host all these events. No. I'm talking about the fact that they have a new system. They have some structure, actually, in Chicago. And offense is something that Justin Fields seems to be picking up on very nicely. If we saw this last preseason game against the Cleveland Browns, we got a chance to see him make throw after throw after throw to get his receivers the ball, not only for room to just catch, but room to continue the progression and run after catch, yards after catch, as they would say, yak. The 5th one is not because I feel like he'll finish 5th. He just happens to be 5th on the list. Justin Fields, top 5 NFC breakout candidates. He is the guy that I'm looking for. You talk about rushing upside in fantasy. He has that. You talk about him only need to really make that next step when it comes to the passing. Everybody will tell you, hey, go attack Jalen Hurts. I get it. But give me more of Justin Fields. He's rounding out my top 5 NFC breakout candidates list. And you got to keep you locked and keep you covered all season long. So, if you didn't know, now you know. This is Fantasy Vibes. What's wavy? It's your boy MoonVibes. You tune in to Fantasy Vibes Live. We're broadcasting on Twitter and we're broadcasting on Twitch on Real Ones Productions. This stream and every single one is sponsored by R1P. We're flying through the show right now, and I'm hopefully you're taking in this content and really just soaking it in. I really want to help you get you prepared for this week. And what better way to get you prepared for this week by giving you information that not everybody's going to give you. Let's talk about the injury updates for week 1, because injuries came out, and not only is it waiver wire Wednesdays, but this is also the day that teams have to have their injury reports submitted to the league so everybody can understand who's playing, who has a chance to play, who's not. It's also the first day of padded practices. So let's go down the list and we'll talk about some of the players that need to be monitored as we get closer and closer to game day. I'm talking about players like Chris Godwin, who we mentioned earlier, Kadarius Toney, Deontay Johnson, so many wide receivers, can't even name all of them for real, and some other players. Also, I'm gonna be breaking it down to you like this. But before we do, we want to give a special shout out to our sponsors, Real Ones Productions, and also don't want to miss college football kickoff on Saturday. Tune in if you're a college football fan on Real Ones Productions on YouTube. That's Real Ones Productions on YouTube. We got you locked and we got you covered. All right. Before I get started, there's a couple of notes that need to be pointed out. Deontay Johnson may be in doubt for week 1. If you're a Deontay Johnson owner, I just said it. Deontay Johnson may be in doubt for week 1. Darius Toney, he doesn't have an injury designation after battling injuries with his hamstring and with his knee all summer long. That is major. We'll talk about that in a little bit more. Zach Wilson is not going to be playing. And we kind of had some hope that Zach Wilson would be back after the preseason, and where it was just like a weird play stepped wrong, and he's not going to be playing. Joe Flacco will be the starter. And some other news that you need to know. Miles Sanders, I don't know what's been getting into him, but he logged a full practice today, which is important. But I'm still not trusting him week 1. Drake London is trending towards playing. Van Jefferson is out for Thursday game against the Buffalo Bills. George Kittle was limited in practice today with a groin injury. Chris Godwin, a full participant, but he had a no contact jersey on. Alan Lazard is still not practicing today. And J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins was a limited participant in camp. That's just a little synopsis for people that might not make it all the way up to this point. But hey, let's get it locked and loaded. This is the injury report. Let's start in Tampa Bay. Chris Godwin, who avoided the PUP list when training camp started, despite tearing his ACL late in 2021 season. A lot of people expected him to be on the PUP list, but he missed the first 4 weeks of the season, which would have been very huge. But the fact that he didn't is like very plus. We're taking that and we're going to run with it. There's a lot of people that say, hey, is he going to be ready for week 1? Is he going to be? I see him shedding the knee brace. I see him making steady progress all summer. I see him. I know he's still wearing a non-contact jersey on the first day of padded practice. I understand. But this is a good sign when it comes to him and his recovery. All signs continue to look positive, and I understand they have Russell Gage and Julio Jones, so there's really no need to panic. But I would say that there's optimism if you're a Chris Godwin owner, and he still doesn't know if he's playing in week 1, so you need to monitor as we get closer and closer to Sunday. But I still stand on everything I said earlier with top 5 breakout candidates. When on the field and healthy, this man is fired. Give him a couple of weeks to let him get reacclimated. But hey, even if he doesn't know if he's playing yet, the Buccaneers are still favorites to win the NFC South. Even though I would pick the Saints, which is crazy because I'm a Falcons fan, but I'm being unbiased. The writing is just on the wall, and it's showing that they are working their way gradually with Chris Godwin. It's something that you need to monitor. Also, to stand in the NFC South, Michael Thomas, New Orleans Saints. He's been dealing with the hamstring injury for the last 3 weeks or so. And when he first came back, there were a lot of positive noise coming out about Thomas, how he looked like his former self, dominating in practice, earning a high number of targets in practice, being a safety blanket for Jameis Winston. I just saw a report, if I'm not mistaken, that Chris Olave is like the number 4 or 5 wide receiver on the depth chart. And Michael Thomas is still locked in number 1. This hasn't been an easy process for Michael Thomas, to say the least. And I know he missed 2020 season with the ankle injury. I understand that same injury cost him to miss the entire 21 season. And we were just like, is Mike Thomas coming back? Is he coming back? Is he not coming back? Well, hey, a lot of these questions are going to be answered, and it looks like he's feeling rejuvenated. And that R word is something that we heard for Adam Thielen, older wide receiver, and it's the same thing we seem to be hearing with Michael Thomas. Now, that hamstring injury, I'm going to bank on him being good to go for week 1. And if he is, that is an insanely big deal, especially after it knocked him out of the preseason, and he hasn't played in the NFL since 2020. I'm going to be looking closely. I understand there's recent injury history and everything, but if he is 100%, start Mike Thomas. Don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. Drake London, Atlanta Falcons. He injured his knee in the second preseason game for the Falcons, and the Falcons have been keeping everything close to chest, haven't been trying to reveal their cards. Arthur Smith is such a funny head coach, man, because he's such a straight shooter, like, and he doesn't have any tolerance for BS. And I understand that. I wanted to know if Drake London was going to be able to practice today. First day of padded practices. And it's reported that he returned to practice this week. But this is an excellent sign for his week 1 availability, especially since it's been murky in the air for it. We didn't really get a chance to see a lot from preseason to get overly hyped about, like some of these other rookies. And I understand there's still some question marks going in, but a matchup against the Saints, you're going to have to weigh that option. But I want to believe that you start your studs week 1. Even if it is a rookie. I understand this practice that he got is going to bode well and increase optimism. It should be increased. But don't fall into the trap thinking that Atlanta's offense is not going to be explosive, especially with Drake London being there. That's the latest news on Drake London. T. Higgins, Cincinnati Bengals. He underwent off-season shoulder surgery. I think it was for a torn rotator cuff. I could be wrong for that, but I know it had to do with the shoulder. He's been limited for pretty much the entire training camp, and there's been a lot of question marks about his availability for opening weekend. Zach Taylor has been confident this entire time, saying he's been ready to go all summer, but if he's been telling me that, then I don't think I need anything to be worried about. Just 2 days ago, he was back at practice, which is a positive sign that was Monday as they approached the first game against the Steelers. But I know it's not necessarily a guarantee, but I'm banking on T. Higgins suiting up this weekend. He is a high-end wide receiver, too, with upside for you. Another wide receiver, Jalen Waddle, Miami Dolphins. His injury status has been one that seems to be getting a lot of notice lately, especially with the soft tissue way it is. And they said it's like unspecified, but I think that it's a soft tissue, lower body injury dealing like with hammy. And that's something that we have to monitor. If they play him week 1, I am just going to read the fine print. Mike McDaniel, head coach for the Miami Dolphins, has been saying this entire time, I have been very, very, very confident with Jalen Waddle playing week 1. They've been monitoring him, trying to play it safe. I understand they've been cautious. And I appreciate that, especially when you have a young stud wide receiver. But this entire team looks different, from Raheem Mostert to Hill to Edmonds. So I feel like they would be fine without him if he did not play, especially talking about the running back room. But if you have any questions about Jalen Waddle and his concerns, this is one that's probably going to take you all the way up until kickoff. But like I said before, I know we're not supposed to believe all coach speak, but Mike McDaniels used very, very, very confident. I just can't ignore that. That's the latest on Jalen Waddle. CeeDee Lamb, Dallas Cowboys, taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He has a foot laceration. that happened in the middle of August that needed to require stitches. He missed a good little time in practice. Amari Cooper is in Cleveland. Michael Gallup's week 1 status is just up in the air, and I'm personally fading Michael Gallup. I've been watching a lot of injury doctors and things on YouTube, and they've been telling me, hey, you need to avoid it because his one quad looks bigger than the other. One quad looks bigger than the other, and that's important when it comes to a knee injury as far as support. So, with that being said, I'm not touching Michael Gallup right now. That's a little side note, but CeeDee Lamb is back at practice, and I understand that there might be some concerns about this foot laceration, but I'm not worried. He's a possible top 10 option at wide receiver on your fantasy team, and it could be a shootout with this high over-under. So I'm starting CeeDee Lamb. Don't even think about it. Press start. Allen Lazard, Green Bay Packers. His status has been a big question mark, and I talked about it before. This is something that's like come out of the blue. He hasn't practiced for like the last 2 days. I talked about Sammy Watkins earlier because this is a possible reality because he wasn't available for Monday's practice and he didn't practice today, if I'm not mistaken. So this is game prep weeks that we're talking about. You talk about trust. We're installing the game plan for Minnesota and you're not even out here. These are things that have to be talked about. As of right now, all we can do is just sit here and wait for more information as the week progresses with Allen Lazard. And the chances seem to be like 50-50. And if it's that much of a toss-up, then I'm going to bank that they're going to be cautious with Lazard. And we have to look at the practice tomorrow. If he misses practice tomorrow, then I would be highly concerned. And I wouldn't really be touching him. It's similar to the Jalen Waddle situation, but the only difference is that the head coach has not come out and said anything positive about very, very, very confident. So that's the latest on Allen Lazard. Deontay Johnson, Mike Tomlin, and Brooke Pryor on Twitter came out and said, she's a reporter for the Steelers, said Mike Tomlin says that they'll let the participation be their guide for Deontay Johnson. She said that yesterday. He injured his shoulder in the preseason finale when he came down, a little bit weird. And a lot of people went to saying it was like an AC joint situation. Mike Tomlin has been not really giving his information, and he really hasn't needed to. He practiced on Monday. Did some and participated in practice on Monday. I understand that it might be in jeopardy, and I'm going to be more cautious with Deontay just because I don't feel, based on what the reports are, that is leaning towards any type of optimism right now. They said that it might not be something that you need to worry about. It's not going to affect you long term and everything. But if we get closer and closer to Sunday and you're still hearing news about Deontay Johnson and his status for Sunday, then I wouldn't play him, especially if they're going to be cautious with him. Deebo Samuel, San Francisco 49ers. He missed the last few days of practice last week, and he has like a knee bruise, but it's weird. They're saying that it's like on the back of his knee, which is weird, but he returned to practice on Monday. And that's a good sign, and for him suiting up. I don't feel like there's any reason to believe that Deebo won't play and won't suit up for week 1. I would feel more confident with that if he logs another practice on tomorrow. But fantasy managers with Deebo Samuel, I would not hold your breath. Start your guy. Darius Toney, like I mentioned before, didn't have an injury designation, which is amazing. Clap it up for Toney. I know a lot of people have been saying, oh, well, he's injury prone already and he can't stay on the field, but this is a huge development with Toney dealing with the personal issues, dealing with the knee and the hamstring. He's barely practiced. Sterling Shepard recently came out and said that he's going to be playing in week 1. So that's some new news. So the Giants could be at full health when we head into that game against the Titans. I don't know what to expect with this coaching staff heading into the New York Giants tenure for Brian Daboll, but it looks like Kadarius Toney is a wide receiver 1 on this team and somebody who you should be starting, for saying that he's ready to go and he's got a lot to prove. That's the latest on Kadarius Toney. Isaiah McKenzie is you don't need to worry about. It looks like he's going to be playing. He's had like a little injury to his groin, and there were a few concerns and everything, but I don't have any. He's been playing, he's been practicing, and he looks like he's all ready for the tilt against the Rams. This is what you need to know. Rondale Moore, we talked about a little bit more. Tyler Drake recently, out of T Drake for Sports, came out and said Cliff Kingsbury told the public that Rondale Moore was doing better and did more today than he'd done previously. This was on Monday. So the hope is that he's going to be good for Sunday. Now, I am not worried about this one bit, and I'm banking on him to play. If he doesn't, it would be a possible situation where maybe a flare up. Maybe they're trying to be cautious. We do not know what the injury is, so it's like undisclosed. But I would say that no Christian Kirk, no Chase Edmonds. I talked to you about it a little bit earlier in the show. I'm expecting big things for Rondale Moore, and if you have him, you have the ability to have him in your flex spot, I would say attack it and attack it heavy. Up next, Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers appears to be slated for another big role in the Patriots offense this year. They got Devontae Parker added to their boundary receivers. They like to run a lot of 2 wide receiver sets, so he could be on the field a lot. He had 126 targets last year. That's Jacoby Myers. I don't think his role is going to do anything but expand this season in a new offense for whoever is the offensive coordinator, whether it's Patricia or whoever. The good news for fantasy managers is that this injury doesn't seem to be too much to concern about. It seems like Ty Montgomery is the one that everybody is paying attention to. Ty Montgomery, Christian Wilkerson, and Yadni Kajust more than Jacoby Myers. They are participating in practice, so that's what you need to know. Christian Watson on the Green Bay Packers has hardly participated in training camp due to all-season knee surgery. I don't see any reason for them to rush him out there. There could be a chance that he does play this week against the Vikings and everything. He surely will have a lot to prove, just based on just raw athletic ability, his way he tested at the combine. There's a lot to love, especially from the entire rookie core of the Packers. But his status, according to Matt LaFleur on Monday, was that the hope is that Christian Watson will play Sunday in Minnesota, so they are hopeful. But they'll wait until the end of the week before making a call. You have to monitor this. LaFleur came out and said, I think he still has a lot to learn, and we're trying to acclimate him as fast as humanly possible. They're putting on a lot on this guy's plate. What does that tell you? I'll let you think for yourself. Van Jefferson, he missed Tuesday's practice. I don't think he's playing today. Playing on Thursday night, so he can be a good scratch for you. Lance McCutcherson, somebody said that they need to pick him up. Hey, if you want to, you can. That's according to the 49, not the 49ers, the Rams people that's out there saying you need to pick him up. And also I've been hearing people saying you need to attack Kyron Williams. I'm gonna leave them to that. But what you need to know is Van Jefferson does not look like he's participating in Thursday Night Football. KJ Hamler of the Denver Broncos says he feels back to himself after returning to game action, which is very, very good. He looks to be leading in that slot wide receiver as a number 3 target, and he could be fantasy relevant until you realize that Russell Wilson doesn't like to throw to the slot receivers. Hey, I'm going to talk about that in another episode. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Albert O, Tim Patrick towards ACL this offseason, so the future looks up for KJ Hamler, but it seems like he's going to be playing. There was no reports of any setbacks or concerns afterwards, so he's almost a guarantee to play in week 1. Already talked about Sterling Shepard. Looks like he's going to be playing week 1. And then we round out all of the news. Is Trey Day playing? I can search it up really quick to see if he is. Matter of fact, let me just go to the Buffalo Bills website. Let me go to my collections. Let me scroll down and go to the Bills. And y'all can actually see for me, with me, and we can do it together. NFL is here. Let's go look and check at the Buffalo Bills. I got every single team in the league's team website right here. So talk about being plugged in. I'm plugged in, my friend. While it's taking some time to load, I go back to over here. and tell you, welcome to the show. We made it through the injury report, and that is what you need to know. Miles Sanders, we talked about earlier, he logged another practice, but I'm still not trusting him. The word that I got from a highly skilled and educated injury doctor told me not to trust Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders told you not to trust Miles Sanders. So why are we trusting Miles Sanders? Week 1. Give me Kenneth Gainwell. Let's look at the Bills report. Bills versus Rams, how to watch, perfect Hollywood story, Von Miller's letter. Let's see if we have any injury report information. Injury report, some news. Let's go to news. Let's see what the news is looking like out there in Buffalo. Buffalo. Dawson Knox. Oh, they signed Dawson Knox to a 4-year contract extension, but they want to tell me Dawson Knox won't be involved. My God. Bills list tight end Quentin Morris. Let's go see. This came out today at 11:09 a.m. The Bills announcing their injury report for Thursday night kickoff game against the Los Angeles Rams, and 2 players are listed as questionable. Tight end Quentin Morris, hamstring practice in limited capacity on Wednesday after not practicing on Monday. Offensive tackle Tommy Doyle was also a limited participant in Wednesday's practice. Doyle did not practice on Monday or Tuesday. Both players are questionable versus the Rams. So, like I said, with Isaiah McKenzie, all systems go. Poyer seems all systems go. Tim Settle, all full participants on Wednesdays and expected to all play on Thursdays. That's great news. Great news. On the Rams side, only one player that carries an injury tag is wide receiver Van Jefferson, like we talked about before. So he's not going to be going. And he did not practice on Monday or Tuesday with LA. So I understand what they're talking about with the Lance McCutcheon stuff. But no injury concerns, at least right now, when it comes to Trey Day. They didn't have him on the report, so I'm going to say he's all system go, which is an amazing thing. Get Kyer Elam and Trey Day. It looks like it's going to be beautiful on this end of the part. Can I trust Gabe Davis for a flex spot? I think that if you're in PPR leagues, yes, I would trust Gabe Davis for not only a flex spot, even if you wanted to put him as a wide receiver too. Even as wide receiver too. Just look at it like this. Big body wide receiver, the biggest wide receiver that they have, going up against one of the, you got Aaron Donald, Bobby Wagner, Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey is going to be moving all over the place. So you can see times where Ramsey is probably covering Gabe Davis, where Ramsey might be in the slot, on the boundary, as a safety, as in the box, as a linebacker. Like, they can use him all over the field. So I'm going to bank on him being the number 2 on the outside, and I'm just going to say that Josh Allen is a stud. Josh Allen makes throws that other quarterbacks get in trouble and get benched for. He makes some throws where he has people all over his bottom half of his body and still able to have the arm strength to chuck it out there. I look at a big body wide receiver, the biggest on their roster. Where does he like to attack him? In the red zone. Give me Gabe Davis as a start. As a Pats fan, it hurt to draft a Bill, but he's worth it. I think he is worth it too. Now, I know there's a lot of people that say, hey, Moon, you don't want to trust like the hype and the consensus, especially if they've been bigging up a player. But just look at his body of work, deeper than just the playoff stretch, but last year. And then also look at the fact of just how they utilize him. I know because Lil Shakir got busy. And I know you're a Pats fan, so you might not want to hear this, but Jalen Wilson has been telling me for a while now, hey, Lil Shakir is a guy that's going to threaten Isaiah McKenzie. He's going to threaten Jamison Crowder. He's going to be pushing for those wide receiver 3 snaps and might even push for the wide receiver 2 snaps. They just have to develop trust with Josh Allen. So he's another potential waiver wire asset that you can attack in your fantasy leagues. But I'm starting Gabe Davis this week. I have Gabe Davis on my roster, one of my dynasty leagues. So I'm going to be playing him on Thursday night. And I know, but this should give you a little bit more cause for pause. If you look at all the over-under totals all around the league on Sunday, matter of fact, let's just go look. All right. Let's just go look. You want to go look with me? Come on. Like Dora says, come on, Vamanos. Everybody, let's go. Buffalo, high over under. Oh, they don't actually give me the high over unders. All right, let's go to Vegas really quick. Let's go to the Vegas lines. Let's see what the lines are because they keep updating. Keep updating. NFL Vegas odds, live betting odds. So we can go this. And I want you to see it for yourself. I know my computer is loading slow, but all right, let's see. Buffalo and the Rams is at 2.5. Bills favored by 2.5. That's what I need you to see. The Falcons lines is going down. It's at 4 with the Saints favored by 4. The Bears at the 49ers. They got the Bears at 6-point dogs. 6.5 point dogs. Let me put context on that. Steelers, 6.5 point dogs for the Steelers. At home? Are they playing at home? Yeah, that's weird. Lions, Eagles. They got Eagles is 4-point home favorites. They have Dolphins, Patriots also at 3. The Dolphins are favored by 3. So, and some of these might be like, it's weird because they have like different things, but I want to know what the projection is. The final, the spreads. Where's the spread? Spread. Where's the spread? Spread. Can you find me the spread? My guy. Got a little butter for the what? The spread. And the spread. What is it? I want to know the spread. NFL. Go to Vegas for NFL. And we're doing this on the fly. So I want to give y'all as much information as y'all can. We can look at the line movements. We can just look at the matchup. Last time I checked, Buffalo at Los Angeles Rams was like a 53.5 point spread. I don't know why they not showing it. 52. It's at 52 is the total. 52. Yeah, over under. Over under is 52 points. If you look at this compared to the rest of the league, this Thursday night game is one of the highest over unders on the entire slate for week 1. If you look at the other ones, it's not the same energy. It's not. And we have to be honest with ourselves. I can go down the list and show you the, team with low spreads. Falcons Saints. That's a low over under. San Francisco, Chicago, low under, over under. I'm talking about anything that's under 48. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, that qualifies as low. Philadelphia and Detroit is higher, is right around that 48 projection. Miami and New England is low. Baltimore and New York Jets is like right around that borderline. 46 last time I checked. Jacksonville, Washington is in the 40s. Cleveland versus Carolina is like 42 last time I checked. Indianapolis, same thing. Indianapolis is a 7.5 point favorite. It is going down. It was 8 points. New York Giants, Tennessee is right around that low 40s. Now the high ones that you want to attack: Green Bay, Minnesota. That's a high over under. Kansas City, Arizona. I call that the fantasy fiesta. You want to attack that game heavy. That's a high 50 point plus over under. Las Vegas Chargers is a high 50 plus point. Tampa Bay Dallas is the same, and Denver, and it fits in that 40 point. So if you just look at it based on the ones that I showed you, the only ones that qualify would be Buffalo and Los Angeles, right? Buffalo, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Detroit. Where else should we go to? Green Bay, Minnesota, Kansas City, Arizona, Las Vegas, and Los Angeles Chargers, Tampa Bay, and Dallas. Those would be the ones with the highest point totals so far. And I can see, they showed me Buffalo versus Los Angeles Rams fits in that, and it's 52. 52, bro. Atlanta and New Orleans, 42.5. Chicago and San Francisco, 40.5. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, 44. Detroit, Philly, 48.5. New England and Miami, 46. Baltimore, New Jersey. I said New Jersey. The Jets, 44.5. Jacksonville at Washington, 44. I told you, Cleveland and Carolina, 42. 44, 45 and a half for Indianapolis and Houston. 43 and a half for New York Giants and Tennessee. Green Bay, 47. It's kind of going down. It was 48 and a half last time I checked. This game is still the same. 53 and a half for Kansas City and Arizona. 52 for Las Vegas Raiders versus Los Angeles Chargers. And Tampa Bay is 50 and a half and Denver 44. So if you look at all of the numbers that I just gave you, what does it mean? From a fantasy perspective, Vegas is basically telling us that the top high scoring games for this weekend are going to be Las Vegas at Chargers, Tampa Bay at Dallas, KC at Arizona, Green Bay at Minnesota. If you want to include the Lions taking on the Eagles, that qualifies as well. What else am I missing? The New England and Miami game is right on the borderline. It's at 46, but it doesn't really count. And then the other game that's really getting high is Buffalo at Los Angeles. So I come back to you and I say, I just gave you all the information. Vegas is telling you what it is. What game happens on Thursday night? A game with a 52 over under. You want to attack it for fantasy. That's why I say start your studs. Makes sense. Two quarterbacks who can sling the ball really well. And that's why I call it a fantasy fiesta. Two quarterbacks, two offenses that are going to be great, but with average defenses. So it just leads to fireworks on the offensive side. Allen, Stafford. Assuming Kyler Murray has done his independent. Oh, man. That's an entirely different situation, man. I'm glad you mentioned that, though. Glad you mentioned that. Welcome to Fantasy Vibes, everybody that's watching. We're streaming live on Twitter and also streaming live on Twitch. Shout out to Real Ones Productions. We've been giving you this content. We've already made it through the show. We still got a couple more segments to do. But we already talked about Real Talk, the Ballad of cheesehead receivers. I got a chance to talk to you about why Sammy Watkins will be the number one wide receiver in Green Bay this year. Also, got a chance to talk to you about Ride This Wave, waiver wire pickups that you need to be targeting. On the list included Jeff Wilson Jr., San Francisco 49ers running back, Carson Wentz taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars in a game that could be higher scoring because I don't know if I trust Jacksonville's defense. Also, who made the list? You just got to go back and watch to see. Can't give you everything, my guy. Should have been watching fantasy, guys. We also talked about the injury report. We went down and see who was actually going to be playing this week, who was in question marks. And I know it's Wednesday, so we'll have more information by the time we do our live show on Saturday. So we'll keep you locked, keep you covered with the injury report around in the league. And it was mostly wide receivers galore on the injury report. Wide receivers galore. So, no big names seem to be missing. The Rams versus Bills game for tomorrow, 8:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, NFL opening day kickoff. Besides, and Isaiah McKenzie looked like he's playing. So that's what you need to know. And I talked about the top 5 NFC breakout candidates for this season for 2022. That was a list that people wasn't necessarily expecting, but hey, we got to give it to you in the best way possible and keep it real with you. Coming up next, one of my favorite segments. Throw the towel. It's time to what? Throw the towel. I'm going to talk to you about a player that I'm giving up on in fantasy already. And the season hasn't even started yet. That's coming up soon. But before we get into it, you need to know that this is sponsored by Real Ones Productions. Real Ones Productions sponsors this stream and every single one of Fantasy Vibes. I kid. I had Kyler on my fantasy team last year. I did too. I traded him. Hey, did you hear the myth about Kyler Murray? About how anytime there's a Call of Duty release, his play just totally drops off of a cliff? I'll let you think about that. Well, this is Fantasy Vibes, ladies and gents. It pains me to do this every single time I have to, but it's that time, ladies and gents. It's that time. Throw the towel. It's time. This player that I'm about to get into right now. There's reports that came out recently that this guy looked stiffer than a mannequin. And it made me think of I Am Legend. What was my guy named Frank? What are you doing out here, Frank? How did you get out of here, Frank? It made me think of I Am Legend. And him walking into the store, talking to all the mannequins. And then it showcased, I Am Legend is so powerful because it showcases the lengths that people go to in order to have interaction when you don't get it and you're isolated as a human. Think about Tom Hanks in Castaway, where it showed you how I can connect with a volleyball and how my volleyball can be my best friend, to where I grow really deep, genuine feelings because that's all I have left to depend on. But you want to know my guy, Wilson? You want to know who Wilson is more reliable than in fantasy this year? This guy. Kenny Galladay, it pains me to say this, but I'm giving up on you before the 2022 season starts, and I'm not even going to get my hopes up. It was all nice and it was great while I had you on my roster, which was never. But if you are a Kenny Galladay owner out there, I will tell you, you are got to be nervous right now. And I'm telling you, you have to be nervous. Now, I'm not going to be debating. Like, I can go into last year's stats and break those down. I can go into the year before when he was on the Lions. I can go, like, we can really, really break it down. If Daniel Jones' biggest flaw is his intermediates to deep throw accuracy, which is a fact, they've said this. Kadarius Toney, who has been on the injury report for most of the training camp and now has a chance and looks to be cleared to play for week 1, is the #1 wide receiver on the depth chart, and he hasn't even got the chance to really practice the entire training camp. And Kenny Galladay is #2? Did y'all see? I wish I could cue up the other highlights with him being afraid to block somebody in the preseason game that got a lot of buzz. I'm here to tell you, if you're a Kenny Galladay owner, it might be time to look for another option on your waiver wire. That's why I gave you a number of waiver wire picks that you need. You got Rondale Moore that's on the waiver wire. Sammy Watkins, who I talked to you about before. Gerald Everett, if you need a tight end and you want to do a stacker type situation. But Kenny Galladay, I am not about to get my hopes up for the entire 2022 season and sit here and go through this roller coaster ride when my eyes saw what they saw in the preseason. My eyes have been seeing what they've seen through the entire offseason. I look at what you did last year, and I wasn't really impressed. You're looking at his last year's highlights. You see some and some really tough catches, you think things like that, but do I trust it? No. Last time I checked, we talked about Rogue in the chat. He said, and you don't get fantasy points for blocking. The last thing you want to do is get hurt in the preseason. And the last thing you want to have reports coming out is that you look like a mannequin out there. That means fluidity is not necessarily there. The only one on the Giants offense that I feel really, without a shadow of a doubt, confident in is the guy, Saquon Barkley. I mentioned him all this offseason, the entire offseason. But it pains me to do this, my boy, and it's nothing personal. So, hey, DJ, you got that clip for me? Yeah, I got that clip for you.
Be back in a minute, all right?
I'm not trusting him this season. That's 2 players already that I've already thrown the towel on. Last episode, I threw the towel on Will Fuller the 5th. This episode, I'm throwing the towel on Kenny Galladay. And it pains me to do it. And trust me, this hurts. Kenny,